Outside of being a Broncos fan, this is the best time of the year.
Wow.
Not just because of Christmas and New Year's, but we got college football playoffs. We've got NFL playoffs rolling around. And 10 years ago, this was an awesome time to be a Broncos fan because the Broncos were right in the thick of it. In fact, like, these next couple weeks for the Broncos typically didn't mean anything because they already had everything locked up going into week 17 back then. And then they just had a first-round bye. Obviously, things have last quite a bit over this last half decade or so. But what didn't change was Monday night the best college football playoff that we've had so far.
I think so. I think every game was close. Both games kind of came down to the wire. One went into overtime. I think it was some fantastic football. And I know the committee got a lot of flack for like their decisions, but I feel like they kind of made the right ones.
Did you see the Florida State players subtweeting Alabama and them making it after they lost that game?
No,
They
but
were-
I could imagine they should probably delete those tweets.
100%. Like, if they would have gone out and beat Georgia,
Yeah.
sure, talk all the smack you want. But Bama went to the very last play of overtime to lose. You just set a bowl record for the biggest loss in bowl history, losing 63-3. You don't have any ground to stand on, Florida State.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually didn't see that. Just
Yeah.
when you brought them up, I was like, oh, I wonder how they did 63-3. Like, oh, okay. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I thought it was great because I had a little Michigan-Washington money line parlay. So I made my money.
What were the odds on that? Because one was a favorite, one was an underdog.
470 maybe.
Ah, that's pretty
50,
good.
yeah. Because I got in when Michigan was down 7-0. And so that's when I made the bet. So it
so you
got a
actually
little
got
more
plus
juice.
odds on both.
I didn't get it on time.
And of course, in Broncos country, the talk during Monday, during those bowl games, was Michael Penix Jr. And Broncos country is quickly falling in love with him. And so I want to break that down on the DNVR Broncos podcast. Welcome into it. We got Super Bowl 50 champ Todd Davis. We've got Henry Chisholm, Zach Stevens rolling with you here. And let's just start. How good of a fit is Michael Penix Jr. for Sean Payton and this Denver Broncos team?
For me, I feel like he's a great fit. I think he does exactly what Sean needs from his quarterback. He's very precise. He knows where to go with the football. And when he takes those deep throws, those deep shots, he hits on a lot of them. I know he has a great group of core receivers, but the ball placement is phenomenal.
Yep.
And I think that's exactly what Sean needs from his quarterback. Now, my fear is that he's playing a little bit too well.
Yeah.
He's doing too well, and then he has a national championship where everybody will be watching him. He's going to be performing really well. You know, you're doing great, Penix, but don't raise your draft stock too high. We want to still be able to get you.
Henry, how good of a fit is he?
Yeah, I think he's pretty good. The one thing that concerns me is that, so I think the last 3 years of Drew Brees' career, he was bottom 3 in the NFL in average depth of target. So it was all just like this little short stuff. And I just pulled it up because Pro Football Reference, that's when they started tracking. Pro Football Focus goes back further, and they have him throwing it farther downfield earlier in his career. But that's the one thing, is that Penix throws so many of those deep balls. It isn't as much of that like short game stuff, and that doesn't mean he can't do it. Right. I mean, he obviously has done it. It's just that for the most part, it's the long throws down the field that stands out. So in terms of a fit, like, I don't think he's a bad fit. Like, he's a really smart pocket passer who gets the ball where it needs to be, puts it right on target every single time, gives receivers a chance. That was the one thing that made me wonder, though, because that's more of like a, I don't know, is he more like Phillip Rivers or Ben Roethlisberger type than like a Drew Brees? But you're probably just nitpicking, because if you can get one of those guys, that'd
be pretty good.
That's pretty good. Yeah, Sean can make that work.
What was Russell Wilson known for in terms of his play? The moon ball when he came to Denver, the deep ball.
Yep.
And that's clearly not what Sean's going for. Sean's not going for the all or nothing, and you win it with the big plays and nothing else. So you're right. With Michael Penix, you see the deep ball, and Todd, he does have really good receivers, like you said, but I could catch those balls, I think, with how precise he's putting all the balls. So you just have to make sure that Michael Penix doesn't just have a deep ball. And from what I've seen, I don't think he just has a deep ball. He has to obviously have those short intermediate passes. We've broken down extensively just how Russ does not have that intermediate ball, and that's so key for Sean's offense. So if Sean identifies, all he can do is throw the deep ball, then no. I mean, this is a younger Russell Wilson that maybe can't run as much and isn't as proven in the NFL, but I do think that he has this short and intermediate. And in fact, when I look at Michael Penix, I'm just like, he checks so many boxes.
For sure.
He's accurate. He has the decision making. He's got poise. He's got a feel of the pocket, which is really impressive. And he just has the intangibles too. He has the leadership. All of the reports on him. In fact, he led the players only meeting the night before. And what did they say at the start of the game? Like, you could hear a pin drop after he left that meeting and was the one leading it. He's overcame adversity. He just seems like he can handle every sort of situation, whether it's at Indiana or transferring to Washington. And there are a couple of negatives that we need to mention as well, because these get brought up all the time. The downsides, there's two big ones, in my opinion. Major injuries. He's been injured many, many times. Does that concern you guys?
If it happened recently, yes. But I feel like those are in the past, and now he's playing his best football, and he's been healthy. Like, guys get injured all the time, but if they can bounce back, even like an Adrian Peterson or, guys bounce back from major injuries. And he's been healthy this year, so I feel positive about that.
Yeah, it is tough. I mean, he's finished 2 of his 6 seasons, which is just not what you want. I mean, that is the concern, though. Like, that's why maybe some people got like turned on to Michael Penix this week because of that game, but like, he kind of did what he's been doing all year. Like, it wasn't like it's like, wait, he can do that. Right. We've known, like, that was definitely one of his better games, of course, but
that's why Washington's undefeated and in that position.
Exactly. But that's why coming into that week, everybody's saying, well, he's probably a 3rd-round pick, and maybe you can't even put a number on it just because you don't know how the medicals are going to go at the combine. Like, if you find that there are serious problems there, half the league might just take him off the draft board and say, like, we can't touch this guy.
If he's playing like this with serious problems,
what's he like without serious problems?
But his injuries came 4 years in a row, right? So he started 2 out of his
first and last. Is that when he finished the year? It might have been.
Or was it the first 4? I thought it was the first 4 at Indiana. And then he's been healthy the last 2, right?
He was healthy last year.
Was he?
Yeah.
Okay.
In fact, he was the first quarterback since Patrick Mahomes to throw for 4,500 yards in back-to-back seasons. How about that?
It's a good company to be in.
Next Mahomes?
Yeah.
I'd take it.
For sure.
Left-handed Mahomes?
Nice.
The other piece of it, though, is that he played behind the best offensive line in the country this year. And that factors in more. I mean, it factors in more, I think, in the passing game where you have so much time to stand there and wait and get the ball out.
Did he have time on, what was it, Sunday or Monday? Did he have time?
Not like crazy time.
And what did he do? Sidestep, dagger.
He does all those things. But
Didn't Russ also have a lot of time and he just held on too long to the ball?
I don't think he had a lot of time. Like,
So-
I do think
you were talking about how the Broncos' offensive line would have been the best offensive line if they made the playoffs.
And they didn't make the playoffs.
Wow,
The offensive line fell apart. I say if they make the playoffs, they'll have a top 3 offensive line
Top
in the
3,
playoffs.
okay.
The running game dried up, so they didn't make it to the playoffs. Like, that's what I was saying. But the point is, I mean, they literally won the award for best offensive line in the country this year. Okay, boo me if you want. But they literally won the award for best offensive line in the country. So that is something that I worry about a little bit, especially when you consider he's left-handed. So you got McGlinchey on the blind side, a guy who's injury prone. I still like it, but if you have doubts, I think that's kind of where the doubts creep in.
So with the injuries for me, I don't want to say I'm encouraged, even more encouraged, but I think he might have actually helped his NFL stock because of the injuries. And what I mean by that is he was a running quarterback at Indiana. Then he had to change to become more of a pocket passer, but he's still mobile. But to me, he profiles better being the pocket passer in the NFL with a little bit of mobility than a pure running quarterback that still has to develop into a pocket passer, and you're really not sure if that can happen. Kind of like Jayden Daniels. And we'll talk about him, of course, over the next few months. But to me, with ACLs, I'm not that concerned because you're supposed to like come back even stronger after an ACL, and an ACL is so different now than it was 20 years ago. If he had multiple ACL surgeries and shoulder injuries 20 years ago, it's like, yeah, he's unfortunately probably damaged goods. Now, I think the injuries have helped his game become that pocket passer, specifically when it comes to the Broncos winning in the pocket that you need, and his mobility he's not just a statue in there.
No.
Now, you're not going to come in and have him being a running quarterback, but I think that he is mobile enough to be able to handle pressure, to be able to pick up 10 yards when you need it.
Yeah, and I think that, honestly, in the NFL, good quarterbacks win with their legs. Great quarterbacks win in the pocket. When you put a list of the greatest quarterbacks ever, they do a lot of their damage from the pocket and being able to find the open receiver and make precision passing. I don't think that accuracy is high level or highly touted enough coming out of the draft. Everybody talks about a big arm. Everybody talks about legs now. And I feel like the accurate quarterbacks are the ones who find success in the NFL. If you look at even like the great quarterbacks of our generation, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, they all had good arms, but they know how to put the football where they need. Aaron Rodgers, they know how to put the football where it needs to go more than they can just launch balls, balls down the field all game, every game,
You know who's got a great arm? Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
Remember that throw he made during his pro day where he's rolling out to the left and threw it across his body like 80 yards? Great. That's awesome for a video clip. That doesn't do shit in the NFL.
For sure.
That's like something you need 0.1% of the time. And if you don't have it, okay, well, you're not going to have one thing that you can go to 0.1% of the time. So, Todd, we haven't talked draft much, but I know you and I are going to get along because I agree with you. As long as you have a good enough arm, anything above that is like gravy on top. But what you really need is the decision-making in the pocket and accuracy. And boy, I haven't watched every play or every game, but considering they're 13-0, what I have seen, he checks all of those categories. Now, the only other negative that I can point to is he's 24 years old, and that's being held against him. It's going to be held against pretty much every quarterback in this draft because the youngest quarterback that could be a first-round pick in this draft is 22 years old. You see some guys come out at like 20, 21, and he's 24 years old. You got to view this. He will be.
May.
May of this year, he'll be 24. You got to view this through Sean Payton's eyes. Sean Payton's not viewing this as a 15-year deal. Sean Payton's viewing this as he's got 4 more years on his contract. Maybe he extends his deal for another 5 years. But even then, Michael Penix is going to be 34 then. Sean's not going to be nitpicky and say, man, that's a great quarterback. If he was 2 years younger, I'd take him, but I'm just going to pass up on him. No, he's not viewing it that way.
No, and I think that most quarterbacks, even quarterbacks that aren't the greatest, like a Trevor Siemian, no knock on him. He's not like a great quarterback, but he's going to play until he's 34.
Right.
Exactly.
I think like the worst case scenario, you get 10 years out the guy. Best case scenario, you get 15. Like that's a win either way. So I don't see that being like a bad thing that he's 24. He's more mature. He's aged.
There you go.
He's wise.
Exactly.
Now, I say that we're going to get along, then you have to go out and bash my guy Trev like that.
No, I love Trev. No, I'm just saying, like, even as like a quarterback that's not like a premier or a starting quarterback, you kind of can make your rounds if you are decent, and you can play until 34, 35, and still make some money.
Yep. Now, I guess a concern that people could point to with that is saying, this guy's played 6 years in college. Shouldn't he be dominating the way he is right now because he's 2 years older than the oldest guys he's playing against? Is there concern about that? And Todd, you kind of hinted to it earlier, like, man, he's playing so well. Is that something that concerns you at all? Like, okay, he's playing against guys that are like, 1 year into college right now. And of course he's dominating them. Should that concern you?
Well, if we want to talk about, I think we have to talk about the injuries on both sides. So technically he hasn't been playing for as long. He's had season-ending injuries. Yeah, he's been watching film and taking mental reps, but his actual time on the field has probably been about 3.5 years in total. So he spent a lot of time on the sidelines, not really playing the way he wanted to play.
And it's not baseball. Like he's competing against like the second highest level of competition in the world. Like in baseball, you get some of those guys where it's like, oh yeah, he's like a 6th-year senior baseball player, whatever, and he's going up against whatever young guys. He's still got like, he's going to high A and then double A and then triple A. Safety, or like you come in late and you're like the 25-year-old or whatever playing in A ball. I'm not a big baseball guy, but then you have to like make a jump. Like he's dominating the second highest level of football. Like I'm not too worried about how old he is or how many extra opportunities he's gotten.
XFL and the arena football, all those guys.
CFL. No, those guys are great too.
CFL.
Yeah, a lot of Montana Grizzlies in there.
Follow the money. The money will say college is where it's at, I think, with Texas's backup quarterback making $10 million. I think his last name helps with that. Just a little bit. And Henry, earlier you mentioned, well, he's left-handed. Should that be a concern? Someone said he's a bigger Tua. And I want to get into that's true after I tell you about our friends over at Bet365, where they're all about never ordinary. And now is the time. The off season is the time for all of these unordinary bets that are so much fun. Specifically, when it comes to the draft, they're going to have so many fun ones. They already have draft ones up, but I guarantee once we know the Broncos draft order, you're going to be able to bet on what position the Broncos take with their first pick, who they pick. They're going to have so many odds. So check out Bet365, especially now. I mentioned it's perfect time for football. Get in on Bet365 for the NFL playoffs, and they're going to give you a deal when you sign up. If you use the code DNVR365, they're going to give you a first bet safety net offer by placing a bet up to $1,000, and if your qualifying bet loses, you receive that money matched in bonus bets, or you can bet and get an offer of $150 in bonus bets by placing a $5 bet. So you can get in on all the fun over at Bet365 by using that code DNVR365. Must be 21 and older, physically located in Colorado. Please gamble responsibly. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, once help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER.
And shout out to the best roofers in Colorado, Red Hawk Roofing. They are Denver's best roofers, and they've joined the DNVR team. They use quality materials. They have decades of experience. They have a quick response time, and they have a free, no-obligation roof and property inspection and free in-depth photo reports for all inspections. If you are looking for a new roof over your home or business, be sure to check out Red Hawk Roofing at redhawkroofing.com and tell them DNVR sent you.
All right, before we get into our Bet365 top 5 quarterbacks in the draft, how we view it as a group right now, I want to ask that question. Is it a good comparison to say that Michael Penix is just a bigger Tua?
I mean, I don't like comparisons in general. I don't think they work out. I mean, you could also just say he's a bigger Teddy Bridgewater, and that's not nearly as exciting.
Teddy Bridgewater's right-handed.
Okay, well, then he's a left-handed bigger Teddy Bridgewater. Like, it's one of those things where, like, there's definitely similarities there, but I think you would look at Mac Jones and say that there were a lot of similarities between him and Tua as well. Like, it's the deep ball when it's open, it's there. Like, I
don't know if Mac was ever known for the deep ball.
I think
that
he was
like
at
his
Bama.
biggest knock was the deep ball.
Maybe arm strength, but deep ball was always there. If you go back to Bama, like Devontae Smith, Jerry, like he was just hitting those guys deep. So I don't know. I mean, that's a lot to put on him. You would hope so if you draft him, but I wouldn't say he's Tua. I think that's a stretch.
So then that means you believe in Tua in terms of the MVP, because there's some like in terms of being like a top quarterback in the NFL, because there's some people even now where Tua's probably like the third highest rated MVP quarterback right now. There's some people that still don't believe in Tua. So some people might actually view that comparison as a negative toward Michael Penix, but I agree. I believe in Tua. I think Tua is the truth. And I actually see a lot of similarities, and you do have to like comparisons in order to like that. So if you don't like doing that, then you wouldn't want to see that. But we talk about the deep ball accuracy is insane with Michael Penix Jr. His poise, feel in the pocket. Tua, injury concerns. I think it was his hip like exploded, and he was airlifted to a hospital at Bama. So there were major injury concerns coming from Tua out of Bama. Now the injury concerns with Tua are concussions, which Penix doesn't have. But to me, I thank you for touching.
Yes.
I see so many similarities, and sign me up for Tua 2.0.
There's also some like Derek Carr.
In what way?
Yeah.
Again, like the deep ball, like playing those one-on-ones. Like I think the ball placement on the sidelines when you got like the like man coverage against. I think back to like Devontae Adams in general, but I mean you could also I guess say like Aaron Rodgers was a lot of the same way. It just depends on how you use some of those skills.
I thought he didn't like comparisons.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean that's why. It's because I feel
Right
like you could compare some things to like half
sure,
the league.
sure.
I think he's really a tough comparison because
Yeah.
I feel like there's not a lot of guys that have came out in recent drafts that are able to do what he has done. I think you talk about the accuracy. I think that's similar to like a veteran quarterback. You talk about the pass yards. Maybe Patrick Mahomes is the only one that's put up those kind of numbers.
Yeah.
So that's the only person you compare to him there. He's kind of in a league of his own. I think he is a prototypical NFL quarterback, and I don't think anybody else is right now.
True.
From Bo Nix to Jayden Daniels to Caleb Williams, those are all guys that are kind of like this new style quarterback. Kyler Murray's and Russell Wilson. There's like different style of quarterback that is now taking over the NFL. But as far as a guy that can sit in the pocket, deliver the football, and make those big throws, I can't think of anybody in the last couple of years that could do that.
And Mac Jones was one of those guys a couple of years ago that was viewed as the Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, not that level, obviously, but that like pure pocket passer. He's not going to provide you anything in mobility. And I think you're right that Penix is that updated version of that type of quarterback where like, just trying to think off the top of my head right now, with Phillip Rivers gone, with Ben Roethlisberger gone, is there any quarterback that is just a stationary, only pure pocket passer?
That's kind of the thing. I mean, you could say like Derek Carr at this point, like, but
And
he still moves.
even he
Like,
has some mobility, and
Yeah,
so
I
I
don't
think
moves a little, but like
Michael Penix is the 2024 pocket passer.
Yep.
You
Definitely.
don't draft him to win with his legs, where Caleb Williams, he's going to do a lot of fun
sure.
things with his legs. You don't expect that from Michael
Yeah.
Penix.
I mean,
he's winning from the pocket.
he moves the worst of like any of the top six probably.
Yeah.
Like Caleb Williams, Drake
sure.
Maye, Bo Nix, JJ McCarthy, like
Jayden Daniels.
Yep.
Jaden Daniels, of course. Like
Yeah.
that's 7, I guess, if
Yeah.
you include him. Like that's just not his game,
And
which
that
is fine.
does
It's-
not bother me one
Not
bit.
at all, because his pocket presence is all he needs. He only needs 2 or 3 yards to be able to navigate the pocket to find a strike. Like, I love when quarterbacks scramble and are able to create big plays, but I think it's even better when you see the play and are able just to hit that same play from the pocket.
Right.
Like, you're right on time with diagnosing the defense and being able to put together the great play, the right strike, right on time, right where it's supposed to be. Like, then you don't have to like run around all day. Like, as a quarterback, your best bet is to get the ball in the hands of your playmakers. And if you can do that early and win early, I think that's where he'll find success.
That's consistent.
Yeah.
That's where consistency comes from, and that's what makes an elite quarterback. So let's dive in. I'm very curious where you guys, specifically Todd, is going to put Michael Penix in the quarterback rankings for this year. And this is very fluid. We're going to see some things that change our minds, so we're going to update this many times throughout the offseason. But we're 4 months away from the draft right now.
Yep.
Let's do our first DNVR Broncos quarterback rankings for this draft class. Nationally, everyone's saying it's Caleb Williams is number 1. Is that where we're putting him?
Well, I guess it's, 2 out of 3, right? Wins the spot.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm not going Caleb Williams 1, so it's on you guys to feel like if you feel like he's number 1.
As Yahir says, if you're watching on YouTube, DNVR is the top quarterback in this draft, followed
I'm
by
not really
Taco
sure what this
Bell,
was.
Polo, Coca-Cola, and Chips Ahoy.
Oh, boy.
Wow. I'll take it. Henry, who would you put here?
I think it's gotta be Caleb Williams still.
Okay.
Like there's just so many things. Like again, he has the accuracy, he has the mobility. Like it's weird. There's some like Trevor Lawrence vibes in that I feel like his
that a
best
comparison?
football. No, well, I mean just in the way that like the freshman year was kind of like what really stands out and makes you say like, oh, this guy's great. And it's not that he's been bad since, but I do think that was probably his best season. At the same time, like the talent is just so obvious. Like he can do literally anything. And there's like whatever off the field stuff, but it is what it is. It is what it is. I'll still take Caleb first.
Todd, who are you going with first?
I'm going with Penix.
Oh.
I like it.
I think, his style of play is something that really impresses me. His poise on and off the field, because I think that's important. He's very calm. He's cool and collected. Like you said, he's been through adversity. He's bounced back and fought back. He's taken a team in Washington who was not supposed to be in a national championship to start the year and has put them there with his play. He's executed day in and day out, and I think he was the runner-up for the Heisman, right? So obviously the second best player in college football. And Caleb Williams, I think, was also behind him. So I wouldn't put
Where
him
was Caleb
above
last
him.
year?
So Penix had 4,500 yards last year too.
Okay.
So I'm going Penix number 1. So that's just me.
That's fair.
Oh man, this
You gotta
is
make the
so
choice.
tough.
You gotta make the
I've
choice.
got to make the choice. And I'll tell you what, the margins are way thinner than anyone was expecting. With like Caleb Williams before the season was Patrick Mahomes 2.0. He was the greatest thing since sliced bread. Teams are going to intentionally tank in order to make sure they locked him up. Now there's a conversation on if the Bears are going to keep Justin Fields, who's having a good year, but he's not lighting the world on. He's not like, oh, he's so good you can't draft the next Patrick Mahomes.
Yep.
So Caleb Williams is falling from that like number 1 without question guy. For now, I'm still gonna keep him 1.
All right, that's fine.
I'm gonna keep him 1, but man, is Michael Penix climbing. So Hank, would you put Michael Penix 2?
Give me Jayden Daniels.
No,
That's my guy. I can't. So he was a freshman at Arizona State, my first year covering the Buffs. And like he was incredible then. Like 17 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, did all the stuff with his legs. And he's been incredible for what, 5 years now? Like he, to me, I think maybe I've tweeted this. I don't think I've said it on the podcast, but like he kind of feels like a trap at this point, in that you look at him and you're just like, this can't be sustainable. Like there's no way he's just this fast, this good at throwing the football, like can process the way he does. And there has to be something up here. Like, is it the injury risk because he's so small? Is it that like I know the speed's going to show up at the NFL level. Like I think more often than not, he's going to be the fastest guy on the field in the NFL, and he's a quarterback. Like I still haven't dug too deep into all these guys, and I do think that like of all of these players, he probably had the most open receivers over the course of like the season, and that helps. As of now, though, like just the speed, the arm, all that sort of stuff, I've got to. He's my guy. I've got to have him number 2.
I know you don't like comparisons, but just say you think he's Lamar Jackson 2.0.
I'd be curious who else has run like that as a quarterback, because I even went back and watched like some Justin Fields stuff, because I was like, I'm not crazy, right? But he's more of like the big guy.
Yeah.
He'll like break you down, make the little move. Those two, like, it just do.
Yeah.
And you have to give the edge to Lamar. Like, you can't say he's Lamar. And like I said, I'm going to go back and watch Lamar. I'm going to go back and watch all this. But right now, it's just freaky, the stuff that he does. It's freaky. And if you can go get Lamar Jackson, I mean, that guy is what, 25, 26 and about to win his second MVP? It's insane.
Yeah, it is insane. So you guys are, I assume you're going Michael Penix.
Yeah.
Look, I got to get him on this list at some point. I think Jayden Daniels is a good quarterback, though. My list was just Penix, Caleb, then Jayden Daniels.
Yep.
I think he's a phenomenal quarterback. I just know that all the running it has been doing is going to be, I guess, slowed down once he gets to the NFL. Same thing with Lamar. Lamar has really changed his game, I feel like, even from a college level to like his first couple of years to now. Like, he's scrambling to find open receivers. He's not taking off to go downfield because it hurts. Guys definitely try to get their licks in when they can. It's so hard to get to the quarterback. If you want to come run downfield, we're going to try to hit you. But I think he's a talented quarterback.
Yep. And on top of that, I mean, like, when do the legs leave? It's like, is it when he's 35 and you've got 12 years? Is it when he's 30 and you've got 7 years? So they have that stuff too. But to me, like, I'm not worried about that yet.
I am gonna go Michael Penix.
All right.
Right here.
Let's go.
But I think Jayden might be 3. But
Yeah.
are we forgetting about Drake Maye? We're gonna dive into that and finish this list after I tell you about our friends over at Illegal Pete's, where, man, if you want a great lunch, a great dinner, some great drinks, Illegal Pete's has it. If you're visiting from out of town, Illegal Pete's is a place that you got to go for a patio drink or a lunch, because they have the best queso out there. So make sure to stop by Illegal Pete's. And if you get $100 in gift cards from Illegal Pete's, they're going to give you a $25 gift card for free. So make sure to check out Illegal Pete's. Whether you live here, you know about Illegal Pete's. If you live here, if you're visiting, that's a place you have to check out. We love Illegal Pete's. You're going to love it too. So check them out.
Also, check out Breckenridge Brewery. We drink a lot of Breckenridge beers here, including those Broncos Country Hoppy Pale Ales, which those are the same ones that have been there for a long time, because as soon as they're there for a couple weeks, they get, warm, and you can just go get a fresh one. But we do drink a lot of the fresh ones that are not props, because those are just the best beers. Yeah, I mean, I guess we're not going to be at the bar this weekend, are we? Because we'll be in Vegas, so not much.
True.
Not
We'll
much
be at a
Breckenridge
bar.
beer.
We'll be at all the bars.
We will
All
be
the bars.
we will be at all the bars.
I guarantee you there's Breck beer in Vegas, though.
I know. I was just gonna look it
Probably
up
too
quickly and
much
see
of
if we
it.
could get it done. But yeah, I mean, every Breckenridge beer is good. You've got the Strawberry Sky is our favorite, the Avalanche, Winter Months, that not Michael Porter Jr., Vanilla Porter Jr., which we named after Michael Porter Jr.
Oh,
Wow.
I'm right there with you.
dang.
Wow. At the same time, though, it is just the Vanilla Porter Jr. So we're doing a lot of replacing on that one. Yes. So let's see. It looks like Raised by Wolves in Las Vegas has multiple Breckenridge, and there's a bunch of others. Oh, the Christmas ales there. So they've got all sorts of Breckenridge beers there. Maybe we'll pick some up.
So you mentioned the Breckenridge beer is not being drank on set because they're props. Why do people think that the bourbon is worthy to drink, even though it's a prop?
That bottle's just gone.
I think it's
right?
just gone.
It's just
Yep,
gone.
polished.
It just kind of slowly dwindled, and now it's just gone. Somebody finished it.
When do we think this one gets cracked open?
Well, the last one's gone, so probably in the next couple days. Whether it's the Nuggets guys or Avs guys.
While we're in Vegas.
We'll come back and be half gone.
Yep. Thankfully, we've never been blamed for doing that, since most of our shows are 11 a.m.
Yep.
And we're not doing that. But the Avs guys, they got a lot of night games.
They
Same
do.
with the Nuggets.
Yep, can't trust them.
Or Yahir was telling me the Rapids just signed a goaltender today, and they're pretty pumped about it. So did you have a celebratory shot, Yahir?
I did not. It's too early for me, and it's Wednesday. My mama don't care about that.
Wow.
Very fair. All right, we are waiting for our guy, Brian Baldinger, to join us. And while we're waiting for him, let's get back into this top 5 list, because my question was the number. So nationally, it's viewed as Caleb Williams is number 1, Drake Maye is number 2, then it's wide open after that. We haven't said Drake Maye's name yet, and I'm probably gonna go Jayden Daniels right here too.
Yep.
What's the feeling on Drake Maye, guys?
He's not my favorite out of like all the quarterbacks. I think he's tall and has a good arm, but when I watch the games, I don't feel like he's making plays that any other quarterback couldn't make. And so I understand because of his size and ability, the hype around him, but I wouldn't put him on maybe 5th. I would put him 5th on this list.
Doesn't that sound a little bit like a quarterback we had here, Paxton Lynch?
In some ways.
Jeez.
In some ways.
God.
But yeah, I mean,
he's not fit if he's Paxton.
I'm like that's exactly what I was thinking. So I spent like 10 minutes going back and watching each of these guys yesterday, and I was like, okay, Drake Maye, here we go. Like, you've seen a couple like clips and stuff, and then you watch and it's like the ball, it looks really nice. Like, it looks really nice. Like, you look at me, it's like, oh my God, like that he drops back, he's so big, the ball comes out so cleanly. But then like he doesn't, like you said, do anything that anybody else couldn't do. Like, he's super tall, and so like there's plays like there's like a guy will get him in the gut and he'll just whip one over his head, and like the arm strength is right there. But like you said, like there aren't any throws where I look at him like, wow, what a great throw.
Let's get back into that conversation in just a second after we welcome in our guy, Baldy. Baldy, what's going on?
Happy New Year, guys. Good to be with you. Thank
Happy
you.
New Year's as well. We're so happy to have you here. And Baldy, we haven't talked to you since Russell Wilson has been benched. How shocked were you that Sean Payton made that move last week?
Well, I think it was the way it was handled was pretty much shocking. I think you can see that there was friction there, but not to the point where you're benching a guy and basically saying, let's see what else we have. We're ready to move on from a very difficult contract to get out from underneath. So I think the way it was handled wasn't very good for any veteran player. Nobody wants to be done like that. Nobody wants to be undressed on the sideline like he was, 2 weeks prior. And so I think I was, but when you read into it and they're looking at, from the bye week on, they were looking to get out from underneath this contract or take a pay, too much money is being committed to the quarterback for what they're getting from the quarterback. And so it was part business decision. I get some of that because that's how owners think. But, it was all okayed by Sean. So I guess I was surprised and caught off guard like a lot of people.
Baldy, with all the craziness that happened last week, there's been a few reports that come out this week and say that Russell still has potential to be the Broncos quarterback next year. He says he wants to be back. The team says, they won't move on him away from him if he's their best option. In your mind, is there any way that Russell Wilson comes back as the starting quarterback for the Denver Broncos?
I don't think so. I mean, you can never say no. I mean, look at what San Francisco did with Jimmy Garoppolo. Like they basically didn't even let him practice, and next thing you know, he's their starting quarterback. Like these things can have a way of working themselves out, but I got to believe that they're looking at Jarrett Stidham, whether it's a legit look or not, I don't know, but I think they're looking in a different direction, and I'd be surprised if he's their quarterback next year. I know things can work out that way, and maybe you can't trade him. Maybe the contract doesn't work out, or however, like maybe you are stuck with him, but that's not a good feeling to basically announce that we're stuck with you, Russell. Let's make it work. Like that's not any long-term answer to building a franchise.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about Jimmy Garoppolo and how that all played out. Like we spent so much time talking about Derek Carr last year because it's such a similar scenario, but that was crazy. Like they don't even give Jimmy Garoppolo the playbook. He knows he's just dead. Like that is wild.
Yeah.
I'm curious though. When you look at this game last Sunday against the Chargers, did you think that the offense looked any different with Jarrett Stidham in charge instead of Russell Wilson?
Not really. They got 2 big plays in the passing game, but that's about what they were getting from Russell anyways. Russell went games without turning the ball over. Stidham went through the game without turning it over. They got McLaughlin involved a little bit more than I think they had in the past, or at least recently. I'm a big Jaleel fan. But outside of that, things, there's not a lot to work with. I mean, Russell used to throw to DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett and, Doug Baldwin at one point. Like, they don't have those options in Denver. So I always thought they were somewhat limited, especially when Cortland went down.
Yeah, Baldy, we all agree with you that we don't see really Russ coming back in all likelihood. So that means Sean's going to be looking for a quarterback, whether it's free agency, the draft. You've watched so much Sean Payton film. What does he look for in a quarterback? What do you think his ideal quarterback has in terms of traits and skills?
Well, obviously beyond the commitment, like the quarterback has to run the run game. So, one of the things that Drew Brees always did was, he just read the box. It could be 3rd and 3, but they're playing pass coverage and the safeties are deep. Let's hand it off to Pierre Thomas, or, let's hand it off to Reggie Bush. Like he did the run game. So you got to be able to handle everything. And then, like, this is not a knock on Russell. It's who Russell is. But, the one thing about Drew Brees, and there's not a big difference in height, although Drew is taller, but his footwork was better. And he wasn't quick to leave the pocket. He did all his work from the pocket. Because as soon as you whirly bird around or you escape, you're basically cutting the field in half. And now you're running a scramble. And some receivers are good at that, and some never learn it. And I thought it was a real struggle for Denver when Russell did that. But that's the way he's used to playing. I don't think he wants any kind of a helter-skelter guy. If you have a dual threat quarterback, there'll be plays in there like Taysom Hill for a dual threat quarterback. But it doesn't involve dropping back, hitting your back foot on a 5-step drop and leaving the pocket just because it gives you better sight lines or better vision. So I think a guy that can win from the pocket. And Stidham is taller and he sees the field probably better. And receivers see the quarterback better too. It's vice versa. So I think those two things be like, and then just the overall level of commitment to building the perfect game plan for each week.
Baldy, you were talking about the pocket, and I really feel like quarterbacks and O-line have to play together to, eliminate sacks and allow for, big plays to happen. Do you feel like the offensive line looked better as a whole with Stidham kind of sitting in the pocket and not trying to escape? They only gave up 2 sacks. Do you feel like they performed better as a group?
I do think they did. And I think when Russell was getting hit a lot earlier in the year, I think it was difficult on McGlinchey and Powers and some of the guys Because honestly, right now in this league, if you're Mike McGlinchey, and you've got your end and you're blocking him and you're in pretty good position, and Russell escapes to the right. Well, if you're a tackle in this league, you got to let that guy go. Now you can't get caught holding on to a shirt sleeve or whatever as he's leaving the pocket. And you don't know he's leaving the pocket until that end pulls away. It's hard. Like, you got to let him go, and you might end up giving a pressure or a hit, but you can't weigh that against getting a holding call and getting backed up 15 yards. And in this offense this year, when they were faced with the 2nd and 20, I mean, look at the numbers and see how many times they converted once they got deep into, behind the sticks like that.
When you look at the rookie quarterbacks who are going to be coming out in the draft this year, which one do you think would be the best fit? Not necessarily just like the best player who would be the most productive, but who would be the best fit for a guy to work with Sean Payton and try to make this offense work out?
Well, I don't think you can throw it any better than Michael Penix threw it the other day.
My guy.
I don't think you can throw it any better than that. But I don't know. I only know Caleb personally. I've only sat in the film room with Caleb and gone to his football camp, and only gotten to know Caleb. I know how he is. I know how smart he is, and I know how talented he is. Like, some of those things would excite Sean. Like, I remember, I did a Big 12 games for a long time. And I remember when Jared Stidham, came out of Stephenville, Texas, and, followed Art Briles to Baylor. And, I remember the buzz about him, and, he started, got hurt and all this kind of stuff. But, you kind of get to know these kids early on. Like Mahomes, people were saying his mechanics can't work in the NFL and all that kind of stuff, except Sean knew that if they had the 11th pick, they were taking Patrick Mahomes. Kansas City knew that, and they jumped in front of him and they took him. But so I can only speak for Caleb. I can't speak for Drake and Daniels and Michael right now. Like, I know that the makeup of Caleb would excite Sean Payton. Like you could sit, like when he was 16, 17 years old out of Baltimore, like he knew how to attack cover 2. He knew how to attack quarters. Like he knew the route combination. And then his arm, like I actually compared him to a bigger, faster, I'm not faster, but bigger, stronger Russell Wilson when he was 17. His arm was just as strong. So, but he's bigger, maybe not as fast as Russell back then, but there'd be a lot to like about Caleb Williams.
Man, Baldy, I love what you're saying about all these guys, but specifically Michael Penix. We've been talking about him all day. And when it comes to these quarterbacks, we're probably going to be talking rookie quarterbacks for the Broncos moving forward, because the Broncos aren't going to have money to spend with having so much dead cap for Russ's contract. And so a big question is going to be, how good is the Broncos' offensive line? And at parts of this season, they've looked great. At other times, maybe because of Russ not helping them out, they haven't looked very good. How do you think this Broncos offensive line is? Are they mid-tier, good, bad? Where would you put them?
I think they're good. I think they're good. They basically played together all year, and so that's you got a healthy bunch. That's part of the conundrum in all these different places now. And Detroit's kept their line reasonably healthy. They've had some injuries, Ragnow and left guard. They may have been in and out, but for the most part, they're lining up their 5 guys. San Francisco, for the most part, are lined up their 5. Philadelphia, for the most, some of these teams that are going to the playoffs, you can point to the offensive line, and they've been pretty stable. So I like the stability factor. Like these guys, you could trust them, just their histories and this season, trust them to build a whole off season together and another year of just continuity. Now, if you want to upgrade one of the positions, it's a great draft for offensive tackles, maybe the best draft we've seen in a long time. There's going to be a lot of good ones to choose from out there where you can basically get your Penei Sewell, and build your anchor around your offensive line. Andrew Thomas, Tristan Wirfs. I mean, there's that level of player in this draft this year.
I'm curious, just because you brought up Julio McLaughlin, I've been wondering why they don't use him more. And obviously, Samaje Perine has been good, and Javonte started the season well, has kind of slowed down a bit. But is there something too with a rookie running back, especially a smaller rookie running back, trying to limit touches early and don't let him get hurt in this first year and kind of just get him to year 2?
Maybe. I mean, they had a pecking order. Samaje was their third down back, 2-minute drill back. You know, he was good in the screen game. But Jaleel gave him the pop in the screen game. He's a guy that catches the ball in traffic really well. He can pop runs. But sometimes you've got to, you got to give him 10 tries to pop a run or 2 runs. And, when he wasn't popping them, he wasn't gaining many yards either. So he had a lot of 1-yard gains. So I think some of that is, well, Javonte's going to break a tackle. He's a little better, stronger at contact than Jaleel is. But Jaleel just has this magical feet, that just can get through some stuff and into the secondary. So I just still think they were willing to give him as many touches necessary. But that might change. You see like Devin Singletary in Houston right now. They felt like that way about him in Buffalo. But the more you give it to Motor Singletary, the better he gets. Like, he doesn't wear down, and he doesn't get hurt. And we don't know that about Jaleel yet because we haven't given that kind of volume yet.
And Baldy, the more we have you on our show, the better we get. Thank you so much for your insight. Love having you on.
Thanks, guys. Thanks. Happy New Year. I'll talk to you. I guess we'll talk at the end of the season next week.
Yeah, crazy enough. We're just a couple days away. Thanks, Baldy.
All right. Take care, guys.
See ya.
See ya.
Man, how crazy is it that we're just 4 days away from the end of the Broncos season? And unfortunately, as has been the case on this podcast since we've been doing this podcast the past 7 years, the offseason's the busiest time. It's the most fun time that we have just because the team hasn't consistently been good. But it's going to be a blast for this. And how about Baldy saying Michael Penix is Sean Payton's guy?
He's so smart, man. That insight is always key.
Did he copy your flow bar for bar?
I think so, but it's all right. I'll let it slide.
Okay, let's get back into our top 5. When we're talking about Drake Maye, a lot of people say comparison-wise, Hank, cover your ears because I know you don't like comparisons. They say that he's Justin Herbert, and he's got the strong arm. And Justin Herbert, I think, is still a very good quarterback. I know Ryan is kind of fallen off on him and thinks he's just a numbers guy, but I also think that Drake Maye could be a Daniel Jones type of guy, and maybe a mix of those two. You have something to work with, but to me, that's just not like the best quarterback out there. And I think there's so many great quarterbacks in this draft that I would go Jayden Daniels at number 3 with you guys as well.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, I mean, he's a good player. I'm not going to knock him. I just wouldn't put him as my top 3 or in my top 3. So I'm cool with Jayden Daniels at 3.
Yeah, it does. Like I said, like to me, like it looks really nice. Like I could see like a scout going out there, like an old school scout. Like you think of like the Moneyball guys, like sitting at the table, like the old man goes in there. And it's like, wow, look at that guy. Look at the way he drops back. Look at the way the ball comes out of his hand. And you're just like, that's awesome. At the same time, I think when you look at who had open receivers, somehow he was the guy, I think behind Jayden Daniels, just real quickly when I looked, who had the most open receivers. Like, those guys are just running wild against these terrible ACC defenses, and credit to him, puts the ball on him in stride, all that sort of stuff. But he seems like he has, like, the tools and the body, and maybe Sean looks at that and says, like, look at this guy. I can teach him how to be a great quarterback because he's just this big, has this arm. Like, but when I went through, it was like, okay, how many of these throws does he need to be this tall for? It's like, yeah, short quarterback makes like 90% of these. Like, there's a couple of those plays, like I said, where it's gets hit in the gut, just like fires one over the top, and you're just like, oh, wow, that's pretty cool that you have a guy who can do that, but what is it really worth? And to me, he kind of reminds me of like the Trevor Lawrence, and to me, it's like the hips, sort of, like those thin hips. And I think people hear Trevor Lawrence, and it's like, oh my goodness, Trevor Lawrence, he's incredible. It's like he was an incredible prospect. I think for a lot of these same reasons, more successful, of course, but, sub 90 passer rating this year. Like, he's not a perfect quarterback. You just see the potential in him because of the size, because like he does have a good arm, those sorts of things. But I'm not sure. Oh, he's an NFL quarterback. I'm not sure he's a great quarterback though.
Yeah, he really excels to me in all of the extras, and I'm just concerned or questioning how much of the before the extras does he hit like A marks on. To me though, he would go 4. Would you guys have someone else that would go 4 here?
No, he's 4.
Because there's also, J.J. McCarthy, Bo Nix. I think those are kind of the top 7.
Yeah.
6 or 7.
Yeah.
Are we missing one?
No, I think that's right.
So you would go Drake Maye. So then who's 5? Because there's one more quarterback that led his team to the national championship this year that we haven't mentioned yet, J.J. McCarthy. Does he deserve to be in this top 5? Is it Bo Nix?
So I only looked at Bo Nix and J.J. McCarthy. And by looked, again, watched like 10 minutes of highlights. And so it's not like I really stand by these, but like I didn't look at anybody behind. Like I've heard some Sam Hartman hype. I've heard some of those sorts of guys. I go Bo Nix. To me, like he can make every throw. He makes every throw. He also makes like more throws than he should even be trying. You know, like roll out, whip it back through double coverage. Somehow like the ball gets to his receiver and you're just like, how the hell did that just happen? Like great play, great throw to be able to hit that window. Maybe never try that again though. And I think that's my thing with Bo Nix is that he has a great arm, can make every throw, tries a bunch of them that he probably shouldn't, and they wind up on the highlight reel, but does that, you know, is it like an early career Josh Allen where you're just like, what the hell are you doing throwing some of these passes? Like, this had no chance of working. And so I have some concerns about the decision-making, obviously like 70% completion, all that sort of stuff. But what happens when, again, you've got that, Troy Franklin, the guy who runs just those deep balls, like one of the fastest receivers in the class, who's just flying downfield. Yeah, he can drop that ball in there, but I still think like he doesn't have that downfield accuracy like Penix does, and he can hit some of those tight windows, but it's like I don't know that I need him trying all of those. Was my quick takeaway.
Between the two, I think they're kind of similar. I think that J.J. McCarthy has had a lot of help from that rushing attack.
Yeah.
Big time.
But overall, I feel like if I had to pick between the two, I probably want J.J. McCarthy as my quarterback.
Okay.
Bo Nix is good. He's able to use his legs.
Yep.
But I think J.J. McCarthy will have a better NFL career.
So you guys aren't buying Jim Harbaugh saying he's the best college quarterback in college football history.
Yeah, well, I'd still
He's
take.
supposed to say that.
I'd still take Tim Tebow and Vince Young over him.
For
and
sure.
what happened to those two in the NFL?
Oh, yeah, touche. I would lean J.J. McCarthy here, but I think those two are very similar, so I don't think you're wrong saying Bo Nix either. No, J.J. McCarthy,
Okay.
the greatest college quarterback of all time, according to his head coach, which is, like you said, shocking.
That's kind of disrespectful.
Yeah.
Tim Tebow.
Manziel.
Johnny was crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Again, like-
Peyton
Really
was
good.
nice in college.
Yeah.
Cam Newton
Okay,
also
and
was
Cam
Peyton was
Newton was
Cam
stupid
was
in college.
Jameis Winston,
Jameis
unreal.
was nice in college.
Marcus
yeah.
Mariota, that same bull. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, like, listen to those names and say, like, great college quarterbacks, can't take
Sure.
anything away. How many of them do you want as your NFL quarterback?
Peyton for sure.
Peyton,
Yeah,
for sure.
Definitely.
Cam for a few years. I
Cam
would
for
take
a few
him.
years, yeah.
And Patrick Mahomes was unreal. And that stat we threw out earlier, he was unreal. He just had a defense that allowed one more point in like the 40s or 50s than he was able to score. That's, I think, why he didn't get a lot of credit in college, was because he wasn't a winner at Texas Tech, because his defense was so awful.
Trash.
Yeah, trash. Todd, they
It's
need you
also
on that defense.
JJ's only 20 years old. So if you want a young guy, that guy's the youngest in the draft. I think.
That sounds like he gets the NFL. That sounds like Zach Wilson is what it sounds like. You watch him, there's some similarities there too.
Yeah.
But like that whole like, hey, he can do this and he's this young, and then he gets the NFL and you're just like, oh, we have a child at quarterback who is not ready to play a grown man's game.
I do think JJ might have a better off the field composure and approach to the game.
It'd be tough to, as of now, yes. As of when Zach Wilson was a draft prospect, no.
Yeah.
You never know how many moms are out there.
In terms of, I remember in terms of a draft
Especially in New York.
prospect, Zach Wilson is the guy by far over McCarthy. Like when you look at the things that he did in college, when you look at the things he did in college, like they were insane. Like McCarthy does not have the highlight tape that he does. But again, like similar roll out of the pocket, big arm, deep ball, that sort of stuff.
JJ
Open
leading that
receivers.
game-winning drive was impressive in terms of like the intangibles, being able to stay cool and calm at the end of the game. But there's our top 5. We're gonna hit this a lot this year, adjusting it, see how we go. But we got Baldy's approval on this list. The two guys he talked about, Caleb Williams, our number 1, and Michael Penix, our number 2.
And you know, sorry to cut you off, but you know what's crazy? He knows Caleb personally and still said he had to still mention Penix first. That's all I gotta say.
Very true.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk to the people. Get into some super chats that we've got rolling in throughout the show. And the first one coming in from our friend, Mr. Orange, says, I don't know. Think Bo Nix is a sneaky my candid.
Candidate, maybe?
Yeah, it
I
says
don't know.
candid.
So I hated Bo Nix early on. It wasn't even because I watched a lot of him, but it was like his freshman year, see a couple games with Jake Schwanitz when he was on the draft podcast, hated Bo Nix. And so I kind of like had like a darker lens when I looked at it. I was just like, this is not, I don't love this. But he has like obviously the tools or why he was such a big recruit and all that sort of stuff. And he does seem like he's obviously put a bunch of it together. Like he's another one of those guys where it's like he is an NFL quarterback, but he might just not be a very good NFL quarterback. Like he does not belong playing college football. That is obvious. But is he just like, I don't know. There's some like Baker Mayfield-y stuff in there where it's like, are you just going to throw a bunch of picks and I don't know. I don't trust it yet. I might love him by the end though.
Would you pay Baker, if you're the Bucks, $40 million this year?
On a 1 year deal? 1 year deal, absolutely.
40?
On 1
Yeah.
year.
I don't. Is he getting 1 year? I think this was his prove it year this past year.
Yeah, but I mean, at 40, he's getting 1 year. If he wants to get 3 years at 30, he could probably do that. But 1 year at 40, I'd do.
3 years, 40.
Nobody's giving him that. Nobody's giving him that.
Really quick, guys, because I just got a message from Jake,
Yeah.
Michigan fan, saying Harbaugh said that JJ was the best quarterback in Michigan college history.
I
It
think
was a very confusing quote because he said both. He said JJ is the best quarterback in Michigan football history, and then pause, college football history.
Yeah.
It was like, so literally I saw people, national outlets take that quote and make it one, the best in Michigan football history, and then the second, the best in college football history. Jim made it confusing there.
don't take Jim's word for anything. Like,
Don't take his word. He's going back to Michigan either. That's for sure.
Yeah.
He's going to be in the NFL. He might be in the AFC West. He might be with the Chargers.
Yeah, let's not
Interesting.
listen to Jim. Let's not listen to Jim.
Next super chat coming in from our friend, Mr. Orange. We already hit that one. Yeah. Coming in from Dirty Denver's Dickel Defense says, watch
our
the
guy.
Oregon game when talking about Michael Penix Jr.'s offensive line.
Yeah, interesting. I watched a piece of that game, but that was months ago.
There were two of them.
Yeah. Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
That
Michael
is
Penix
true.
2-0
I think
against
I
Bo
missed
Nix
the
this year.
championship, but yeah, I trust. I will be watching every one of those games.
The thing about Michael Penix, too, you said it earlier, Todd, that Washington was not supposed to be a national championship contender at the beginning of the season. And then throughout the season, no one still believed in them.
Yep.
In fact, in the after they had beat Oregon, they played them in the Pac-12 championship game. They were 9.5-point dogs. No one thought they were going to win that. And if they lost that, they wouldn't have been in the college football playoffs. People didn't think that they were going to beat Texas. They were 4.5-point dogs. Now they're 4.5-point dogs against Michigan, too.
I'm gonna make
maybe,
more money.
Texas.
maybe people will believe.
It wasn't even as close as the score says.
No.
I
It was
mean,
a
they had a
14-point
fumble
game.
punt. They
Yeah.
had, it
Well,
wasn't
it was
close.
the injury, the running back at the end.
That hurt.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Like they should
Literally
be
hurt.
like they would have run it out, but that saves what, like 30 seconds because of the injury timeout.
Yep.
All of a sudden, there's time to go down the field. Like, I get why that rule is a rule, but there might be something that needs to be talked about with that.
Some old lineman should have just picked him up.
Yeah,
Exactly.
And just ran him to the sideline.
Also, like if he's not playing, that's he ran for like 250 or something against USC.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
USC's. That's not. I could run for 250 against USC. 200 at least. Behind that offensive line, yeah.
You throwing the challenge flag on that
150
one,
for
you
sure.
hear?
150 for sure. Give me the offensive
You're
line.
not even getting 5 yards, dude.
Oh, dang.
Wow.
Oh man, Todd, how do you feel about this next super chat from Andrew? Says Michael Penix is close comparison is Jimmy Garoppolo, injury prone.
I disagree.
You don't say.
And Jimmy has some great years in the league.
Exactly.
Jimmy
Total winner.
Jimmy was,
This is the
honestly.
thing.
all he did was win. For real, everywhere he went.
This is
except for
the
the
thing
Raiders.
about
Well, he even beat
comparisons.
us.
Yes,
Yeah,
he
yeah,
has a
that's
lot for
true.
the Broncos.
That's the thing about comparisons, though, where it's like, could he turn out to be Jimmy G? Sure. Could he turn out to be like Tom Brady? I mean, like, it's possible. Anything is possible.
Clip
Could
it.
he be a Mac
Michael
Jones?
Penix, Tom
Also
Brady.
possible. Like, there's so many of those like pocket passers who have like pretty similar strengths and weaknesses who have turned out so many different ways. Like, yes, if you want to see Jimmy G in him, you could probably see some Jimmy G in him.
And which one of those pocket passers wears a do-rag every game?
Wow.
None of them. He's a different beast.
Okay,
He's a different animal.
Wow. That is, yeah.
Okay, wait. What's going on when he puts his head in that thing on the sideline?
Which
like
one?
When he was crying?
No. During the game, this past game.
Oh, this week? I don't know.
He did it multiple. The first time I thought he was just like reaching for a phone because they talk like upstairs, but he did it multiple times. Like his whole head just disappears into this thing. I don't know. I saw it multiple times and was so confused.
It must be like
what's
a
going on.
visualization thing. I would guess. And that's just a guess. But I mean, we've seen it before. Like after the Pac-12 championship, right, where he like spends like a minute and it's almost like on the bench and there's like this thing on top of the bench and he just like puts his head in there and stands there for like a minute and he's probably like crying or doing whatever, but it's like a meditation.
He's definitely not crying.
I don't know. But I mean, you see it there. I don't know. There's something going on. I promise you, NFL teams will be asking him that question.
Yeah. Mr. Rocket says, how likely do you think Denver trades up? How far? This is a great question, Mr. Rocket, because I think for the Broncos to get Michael Penix, they are going to have to trade up to get him. But Henry, I think you said something yesterday that might, you don't agree with that?
I mean, I still think there's going to be half the teams in the league who just say, look at his body. Like, it's broken down this much. It's probably going to keep breaking down. Like, there's the flaw. I wouldn't be surprised if his draft stock peaked like yesterday after that game. And I don't think he's going to like drop all the way down. But I do think you factor in the injuries. Like, you'll have Jayden Daniels will either run his 40 and everybody will be like, oh my God. Or he'll say like, actually, I'm just not running a 40. Everybody's going to be like, oh, he would have run a 4.27. Like, and then people just run with that.
Yeah.
Like, this might be kind of the top. I think that there's a good chance that he's top 10. I think there's a chance that he's available at 25. Like, we'll just have to wait and see.
I'm good. I'm good with all those opinions from people.
Yeah.
Let him drop and we can pick him up wherever we need.
Yep.
I mean, the Colts got rid of Peyton Manning because he had neck surgery. They thought he was done.
Yeah, that was.
Granted, they got
all-time
Andrew
bet.
Luck, but still, Peyton went out and broke records.
Yep.
Like
Won
within
a
2 years,
Super
won a
Bowl.
Super Bowl.
Yep.
Went to 2 Super Bowls and won one. He's good. Penix is good.
Peyton was good.
I think 4 quarterbacks will go in at least the top 8, if not the top 6. So I think the Broncos are going to have to trade up, and I do think they will trade up. And that's a big conversation that
It's
we'll
just so
certainly
tough
have.
to say. I mean, because again, like, you remember like 2 years ago when it's like, oh, Malik Willis is a top 10 pick. Like, you've got like 5 of those guys. It's like, oh, there's going to be like 6 quarterbacks, and there winds up being like 1, and it's Kenny Pickett at like 16.
That was also like the worst quarterback draft class, like going into it in like a decade or something. This is viewed as like one of the best in a long time.
I feel like it's every other year though that it's like, oh, it's the best draft class ever.
And this is
like
it.
there was like the Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, whoever the hell else was in there.
Exactly.
Like,
That's it.
Exactly. It's like every other
Zach Wilson, but that was
exactly.
that was 3 quarterbacks in the top 9.
Yeah.
And
but again, like the hype before that was best draft class in the history of draft classes. Like this will be like the 83.
I don't know. That one was like
It
Trevor
was.
Lawrence.
People were saying
No.
83. People were saying 83.
Who
this
else
happens
was in that
every
class?
2-3 years.
Was
Zach
that the wide
Wilson.
receiver heavy class?
It was Zach Wilson, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Mac Jones.
But then what were the other positions that were like?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
Oh,
Final super chat coming in from Romel says, will top 3 quarterbacks fall past pick 3? I want to say no, but there's one thing that makes that a difference is if Marvin Harrison Jr. is there and a team just wants him and already has their quarterback. Like, it depends on how the draft order shakes out. But man, I love draft talk.
To me-
this is going to be a blast, especially when quarterbacks are involved.
To me, the answer is nobody has any idea, and they especially don't know on January 3rd. like you're gonna get to draft day, and half the teams are gonna be like, "Oh, these guys might be there. These guys, there's no way they're there," and then you just never know what happens.
Too logical, Hank. Too logical with your lack of comparisons. But this has
fair.
been a blast. We got so much more to come, including one more show tomorrow. We'll be talking draft position. Should the Broncos win or lose this weekend? I think we're going to have some differing opinions, so stay tuned. 11 a.m. tomorrow. Thanks so much for rolling with us. Hit us with a thumbs up on your way out. We'll see you tomorrow.
We all silly like the mayor.